Good morning. It is time for Tina Book Tuesday, episode 139, with author Lisa Prysock. I'm coming to you from my writing office here in beautiful Kentucky. I hope you have something to drink that you enjoy and a few minutes to chat with me. Today, I'm sharing some research tidbits for the book that I'm writing right now, A Summer at Sagamore. So let's get right into it. First of all, Sagamore Resort is not to be confused with Teddy Roosevelt's home, Sagamore Hill, where he spent about 7 years. It came to be known as like the White House Summer House. And this Sagamore Hill that Teddy Roosevelt built, it was located down further south on Long Island near Oyster Bay Cove in a place called Cove Neck, New York. So where Sagamore Resort was that I'm writing about is further north of New York. And if you put your finger on a map of New York City and you go north towards Albany and straight up following along the Hudson River, you'll eventually come to Lake George, which is still considered New York in this area, but it's not far from Vermont at this point because it's in the very northernmost parts of the Adirondacks. And Lake George is it's a long lake. It's somewhat narrow, but larger, wider than a river. And Ticonderoga, Fort Ticonderoga, sits at the northernmost tip of Lake George. And Ticonderoga kept falling in and out of the hands of the British and the Americans. Sagamore Resort is located on Green Island, which is a small island which sits along the western edge of Lake George. And it is more towards the middle south of Lake George than the northern part of Lake George. The town of Bolton is directly across from Green Island on the western side of the island. And it has glorious mountain views, beautiful lake views. It's covered with gorgeous trees, and it's just a very beautiful area, which is what made the whole area so popular. On the western shore in the late 1800s, the wealthy began building their summer mansions all along a 10-mile stretch, and this area became known as Millionaire's Row. However, the history is even deeper than this, and in 1802, we know that there were only 5 framed houses in the town of Bolton across from Green Island, and the rest were basically modest log cabins. In 1817, because of the depth of Lake George, steamboat travel became possible, and it made Bolton, the town of Bolton, accessible. Hotels and lodges began springing up gradually in this area to accommodate summer visitors. Many were campers, explorers, fishermen, and hunters. In 1816, just before the steamboats came into the area, their first post office was established in the hamlet there that was growing up and spreading around the mouth of the Huddle Brook area. So they had a post office, a general store, a tannery, a blacksmith, a grist mill, and of course residences in that hamlet and it all became Bolton Landing. Artist Thomas Cole is believed to be the first to place Lake George in the national spotlight when his illustrations of Lake George showed up in James Fenimore Cooper's book, The Last of the Mohicans, in 1826. So, I don't know about you, but I'm pretty fascinated with all of this history that I've shared with you so far. And I'd like to get into more of it with you in a future video. I know there were two famous opera singers that summered in this area from the Metropolitan Opera. There were a plethora of internationally known famous people, such as an organist, a famous steel sculptor, some violinists, a cellist, artists, and pianists, and many other people who flocked to this area for inspiration. So I'm excited to share more about it with you in a future video. Tell me, is some of this new to you? Have you heard a little bit about this? In fact, there were presidents who vacationed at the Sagamore, which I'd like to share more about that with you. And I'm just fascinated by Millionaire's Row and the fact that some of those houses that were built back then still exist today. So we haven't even touched hardly at all yet on Sagamore Resort itself. This is just the history of that little area around that island. So I'm excited to get into more of it with you later. And thanks so much for joining me today. Give me a shout out if you saw this video. Have a great day.